Dude, I know that you think you're helping, but you're not really helping. Dude, I love you. Okay. Hello, welcome to the Vintage Girl Next Door. My name is Laci, and today's video, we're doing a Q&A for 100K subscriber celebration. Oh my goodness, I can't even believe it. Thank you all so much for being here. It's blowing my mind a little bit. I never did think that my channel would ever grow to this number, that our vintage neighbors would reach 100,000. I can't believe it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You guys being here, all of your comments, it does mean the world to me, and I can't thank you enough for all of your love and support. It is wonderful. I love our vintage neighborhood community. So first off, just thank you so much. So in celebration of 100,000 vintage neighbors, I thought it would be fun to do a little Q&A. So I did a post on the community tab the other day when we hit 100K and asked for some questions that I could answer for this Q&A video. So that's what we're gonna do today. I'm gonna get to as many questions as I possibly can. Hopefully I can answer all of them, but there's quite a few, and just with time constraints, I will get to as many as I possibly can. Thank you so much for leaving your questions and taking the time to comment. I sure appreciate that. So let's get started. Grab a cup of tea. Let's answer some questions. I did do a Q&A video back when we hit 50,000 subscribers, middle of 2020. So if you by chance don't get your question answered, it could be in that video. I'll link that one for you just in case you want to give that one a watch as well. First question is from Vintage Thrifted Treasures, and they asked, do I ever get calls to be in movies of the MCM era? The answer is kind of, but not really. So I have been lucky to be a part of some short films just in kind of my local area. There's a fun little filmmaking community. So I have been in some period pieces in the local little short film sector, which is wonderful, and I'm so grateful for that. In fact, I do have one of them that I posted on the community page a while back, but if you want to check out Jeff Sanders Films, his YouTube page, I'll try to link that one for you. There is one of those period pieces I'm talking about is on there. So if you want to give it a little watch, it's a 15-minute short film. But as far as like actual Hollywood, nah, they haven't called me. That would be exciting though, right? I did see a few questions asking me about a vintage car, if I had one, and to tell you about it if I did. And so my answer to that is unfortunately no, I do not have a vintage car. If you have seen the In the Know video, the car that we are driving in that one, my grandpa fixed it up. It is a 1955 Chevy, and it belongs to my cousin. He was kind enough to let us borrow it, and he has on occasion here and there let us borrow that car. So that one is not mine. I am still on the hunt for my vintage vehicle. So probably like as far as the top ones that I would love to have, I would say late 50s Cadillac, specifically 1959 Cadillac. Oh my goodness, you guys, they have the coolest fins on the back. It looks like a rocket ship. Yes, I love it so much. Also, I really love late 50s station wagons. I know that sounds weird, but they are so cool. Station wagons with the fins, the back window goes all the way like around, just glass. That also reminds me of a spaceship, and I love it, and I can just picture the vintage station wagon pulling a vintage Airstream trailer. I would love that. That would be so fun to tour around in vintage style. Also, another awesome automobile is like late 50s Edsel. Those are so gadgety and cool. Charles Phoenix has a YouTube channel, and he has a video where he gets to drive a late 50s Edsel. So if I can, I'll link that one for you. That's a really cool car. So I would say those are probably the three that I would love. I mean, really, any 50s vehicle. It's great. They all look so awesome. It's such a classic look. I love it. So yeah, I'm on the hunt still for a vintage car. Question from Andrea Wiseman. She asks, where do you store all your vintage finds? Well, I do display a lot of them in my home. We've really started from scratch here about 6 years ago when I bought this house. Really didn't have much at all in the way of vintage decor, so it's just been a process because, as you may know, most of my decor and things are thrifted. So that takes a lot of time to piece together. So I have a lot of the things I have just displayed. As far as my wardrobe goes, it is a bit of a problem storage-wise because vintage homes do not have huge closets. And so I am currently taking up a full double closet, half of my husband's closet, and the downstairs spare room closets, and I have some bins of storage. So I try to constantly rotate through things, and if I haven't worn something in a long time, I try to put it for sale on my closet Instagram page. So I will link that Instagram page for you if you want to check it out. I do closet sales periodically to try to kind of make room in there, but I do pack things away seasonally. So if it's, whether it's a decor item or a clothing item, if it is winter, for example, all of my summer things are packed into bins and stored under my bed. So that helps make room a little bit, but I try to look for specific items that I know that I have a place for. And if I don't have a place for them and I still get them, I end up usually passing them along to a good friend or something like that. So yeah, eventually I will definitely run out of space in this little house of mine. So we'll see. We'll see what happens at that point. Seal2 asks, knowing what you know now, if you had a time machine, would you go back in time? And if so, what time period? I love this question, so fun. So, I mean, here's the thing. If I had a time machine, I could go back and make little visits back in time and not have to actually stay there, right? So I could, in theory, go use the time machine, go back in time to the 50s, buy all the things, you know, just do a big shopping spree, and then bring it all back. But I wouldn't want to stay. I do love a lot of things about modern life. I love 1950s style. I love 1950s decor. I would not want to live there permanently. No, there's a lot about that time period that we've learned from, and there's a lot we still need to learn, but I would not be happy. So modern forms of communication, cell phones, computers, things like that, ways to connect with other people that aren't close to you. Also easy access to so much information. Those things I would definitely miss. Also, I mean, I don't even need to get into necessarily all of the aspects of human rights, but civil rights, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, we've come a long way. We still have some places to go there. I would not be able to live with that. Question from Pat for Clippers. They asked, how come we never get to see your son? And do you plan to do this vintage lifestyle for the rest of your life? It's not just a phase. How come we never get to see your son? Because that's up to him. I've asked him here and there if he wanted to be in any videos, and he currently does not. And so I'm not going to ask him to or force him to if that's not something he's comfortable with doing. So yeah, it's up to him. Do I plan on doing vintage lifestyle the rest of my life? I mean, as long as this is what I love, I plan to keep doing it. I mean, I don't really know how else to answer that. I know that style and fashion for everyone is a personal thing and it tends to evolve, and that's fine if that's what happens. I have been doing vintage style for like 8 or 9 years or so now, and my personal style has evolved within vintage style as well, if that makes sense. I do tend to wear a lot more authentically vintage pieces now than what I did starting out. So it's evolved in that way, but I don't see myself ever going back to modern style. People have seasons and phases, if that's what you want to call it, of their life. But I feel like just as long as you're being authentic to how you feel at the time, then that's what's important. And so I can't say for certain, I guess never say never, that my style choice wouldn't change, but I don't see that happening. I do feel like this is where I feel most at home, and so yeah, I don't see it changing. Stacy Disotel asks, congratulations Laci, I just love your videos. Thank you so much. Excuse me. I'd love to know, what is one vintage piece of furniture that you would most love to find that you haven't yet? That is a good question. Let's see, there's probably a few. I would say I would love to find a vintage sectional couch, like a big sectional, probably turquoise, 1950s sectional. That's definitely on my list. Another piece of furniture that I'm looking for, I don't know if it counts as furniture, kind of, is a 1950s Predicta television. I would love to find one of those. They are so cool and so space age looking. I love the one that looks like a rocket ship on the bottom. Oh, you guys, I need it in my life. So I'm on the hunt for those, but I mean, really, I'm always on the hunt for something, right? So I'll keep my eyes open. We'll see what we can find. Elena Fuentes asks, who is your celebrity inspiration for your vintage looks? So, man, there's so many. Of course, I have to say Marilyn Monroe. She is an icon for a reason. She is incredible, and her style is a constant inspiration. Another big one is Grace Kelly. Oh my goodness, I love her style. I love her hair. I love everything about her. Those are probably top two, I would say. However, I do really love to get vintage style inspiration from regular vintage ladies. I love just looking up vintage photos of regular people and seeing how they dressed. I know a lot of my looks, I go a little more glam, and I like to, it's fun. However, I do love like just the average 50s woman trying to look at pictures like just regular people. I feel like that's very, very cool to see and very interesting to see, just something other than Hollywood version of the 1950s. Next question is from Connie. They said, congratulations, Laci. Thank you. My question is, how long have you been dressing vintage? Your wardrobe is incredible and you wear it so well. Do you have favorite stores or websites for completing a look? Thank you for your question, and thank you for your kind words. I mean, favorite stores, I guess I would have to say thrift stores. That's really where I have gotten the majority of my true vintage wardrobe. To be honest, thrift stores, yard sales, estate sales, those kind of things. So if I'm looking for anything super specific, I always go to Etsy or eBay and type that item in the search there. Good thing to keep in mind with Etsy especially is that you can filter your search. So I always filter it by price and size if I can. Sometimes not size, but always price. So I just set the top price at whatever my budget is, whatever I'm willing to spend. So if it's $50, say, then I'll say, okay, I'm looking for this price range anywhere from $0 to $50. And that way it won't show me anything that I don't want to spend that much money on, because then I'll fall in love with it and then we'll have a problem. Question from Emma Carter. Other than the 50s, what other eras do you love? Goodness, you guys, I love history. I love antiques. I love all of those. Basically like 90s back. There's something really interesting and cool about every era. And so I really do quite enjoy all of them. However, as far as like, if we're talking fashion, I would say 30s, 40s, 50s, early 60s is my top. Next question, I am Yellow Banana, says, yay, congrats, thank you. My question is, if you could wear only one red lip product for the rest of your life, what would it be and why? Oh, that's hard because I have a whole lot of red lipsticks, you guys. It's a thing. So I'm gonna narrow it to two. So as far as cream lipsticks go, I would say Besame Cosmetics, #1 for sure. And the color Forever Red that they recently released, I think early last year. Love it. It's so pretty, such a pretty true red. I would say that one for cream lipstick. And liquid lipstick, I've really been loving the brand Beauty Bakery. In fact, that's what I'm wearing right now. It's their matte lip whip. The shade is called Mon Cherie. So yeah, I'll try to link them for you if I can. Lady Rebecca Fashions says, congratulations, thank you. I would love to know how you first started getting into vintage style, if you started with true vintage or repro fashion, and what your first true vintage piece was. When I first started getting into vintage fashion, I didn't know where to look. So my first vintage style piece was a reproduction piece. It was from a store called Betty Page Clothing, which is now Tatiana Clothing, and super pretty gray dress. In fact, I still have it, I still wear it, I still love it. Super well made. So that was my first kind of vintage style garment. And then from there, first true vintage piece was a dress from Etsy. Unfortunately, it was so long ago and I've worn it so many times that it needs to be mended quite heavily. If I can do it, I will. I don't know. It's a blue floral early 50s dress, super pretty. So yeah, that was my first true vintage from Etsy. Eva Marie Sanz Herrero asks, what did you learn from your grandmothers? How did they influence your passion for vintage clothing? This is a fun question. So unfortunately, my dad's parents actually passed away when he was only 16 years old, so I never knew his mother. However, her name is Eva as well. That's awesome. But I love looking at photos of her. She had some really cute looks. In fact, there's one photo in particular that I would love to recreate her look from. If I can, I'll pop it in for you so you can see what I'm talking about. It's so cute. So unfortunately, I never knew her. So her influence is mostly just from photographs of her, but I do love to look at those. And as far as my grandma Dorothy goes, my special grandma, her big thing was always looking so well put together and so nice, and just complete outfits, jewelry, accessories, everything looking immaculate. So her influence is a lot with that and accessorizing your outfit. I love how she would always wear brooches. So I do have her brooch collection that I wear quite often and think of her when I do. But I also quite enjoy when she would tell me about what she used to wear, what she would talk about, like the full skirt. She would talk about her crinoline and starching it and leaving it like so that it could stand up in the tub basically after she washed it. So things like that are just so fun, like just little tidbits about her personal style is fun, and also just looking at old photographs of her is so fun. Donna Johnson asks, I would love to know the reaction of elderly men when you see them in public. I'm sure it brings back sweet nostalgic memories. Yes, I do get lots of compliments from elderly men, and they always know exactly what era that I am going for. They say, you look like my mom, and they are usually very sweet and kind with compliments and say, hey, you look like you're from the 1950s, and I say, thank you. That's exactly what I'm going for. A few questions on how did I settle on the 50s as the era that I love, and the answer is mostly due to my grandparents. They got married in 1955, and I love to hear their stories. I love to hear them talk about how much fun they had in the 1950s dating and cruising in their car. My grandpa had a 1956 Corvette that I love to see pictures of. Oh, I wish he still had that car. It's amazing. And I love hearing about them going to dances, like drag racing their car. All of those things is so fun to me. And so that kind of got me looking a little closer at the 1950s. And then really the style, I love it so much. I love the silhouette of the 1950s with the pulled in waist and then the flared out skirts. So pretty. I feel like it's very flattering on all body types, and just the style itself just really appeals to me. KT asks, do you have any vintage loving friends? And if so, how did you meet them? Yes, I do. I'm so grateful to have such a wonderful group of friends, and I met them through Instagram. I have met some through YouTube, which is great, but mostly I've met kindred spirits on Instagram. I have a lovely group of friends there that I'm so grateful for. We talk pretty much every single day. I would love to meet them in real life at some point. That's definitely on our list to do when we can travel again and things are safe. I sure hope that I'm able to meet up with at least one, if not all of them. Oh my goodness, that would be a dream. Okay, Poppy asks, wow, congratulations, thank you. What are the common errors when one starts dressing vintage? I'm glad that you asked this, because here's the thing. You're making a personal style choice. I don't think that you can go wrong. Honestly, just do what you love. You're not wrong. Like, there's no error there in wearing something that you love. So, I mean, if you're going for an authentic, exactly all 1950s look, you can look at photographs and things like that to get inspiration. But honestly, whatever you put together, it's gonna be beautiful. Just do it. That's what I'm saying. There's no wrong way to dress vintage. If you mix eras, great. If you do kind of more like of a modern take on it and do kind of like a rockabilly or pinup style, great, do it. If you do authentic vintage, true vintage, great. Like, there's no wrong way, is what I'm saying. There's no wrong way to do vintage style. Go for it and do what you love and what makes you feel beautiful. Okay, Laurie asks, I want so badly to see a pre-vintage photo of you with your dark hair and modern clothing. I want to see what you looked like prior to choosing your lifestyle. Also, any collabs with other vintage YouTubers in the works. A lot of people, I guess, responded to this one, Laurie, so I will do this for you. Here is a photo of me pre-vintage. I mean, I was all over the place. I didn't really have a set personal style, mostly just kind of like whatever was in at the time, jeans, like tops, whatever. I had very long hair for a long time. Most of my life I had long hair. My natural color is brown, so it was dark brown, and then went to black, and then that's when I switched to vintage style and cut it. So here you go, pre-vintage Laci. And second part of the question, any collabs with other vintage YouTubers? Yes, I'm so excited. I'm going to be doing some fun collabs. You'll have to stay tuned for that. Some of my good friends, we've been talking about it and planning things. So yes, that will be happening this year for sure. Okay, Rhea Long asks, is your son ever embarrassed by how you dress in public because you don't dress like all the other moms? And do you ever get rude comments on your dress and hairstyle? Not being mean, just know my girls would get embarrassed by their mom from time to time. My son doesn't tend to get embarrassed by my appearance ever. I mean, I've been dressing this way for half of his life. So from like when he was very young till now, so it's always been like a part of who I am. And I do feel like, and I hope, this is my hope anyway, that it's taught him to not be embarrassed by what other people think and not care what other people think about how you look or dress or act or do your hair or whatever. The middle school, high school age is hard. I know it's very hard at that time not to care what people think, but honestly, he's never acted embarrassed when we're out in public. He's never said anything about being embarrassed. And so it's just kind of a non-issue, I would say. I have occasionally gotten rude comments from other people, but it's very rare, few and far between. I can't even really think of anything super specific to tell you. So yeah, I don't know. Okay, Liliana asks a very similar question. She said some very kind things. Thank you for that. So her question was, is anyone ever mean or make you feel bad for your vintage lifestyle? If yes, how do you handle those situations so it won't discourage you? People aren't really mean, and I did kind of mention that. The main thing that I run into is people who don't understand and people who make a lot of assumptions because of my vintage style. I've had people assume that because of my home and the way I dress, that I'm very old-fashioned in the way that I think, and that is not true at all. So, or think that I am racist because of this, which I don't really understand that, but okay. And so I try to respond in a kind way and just say no. I mean, there is a saying in the vintage community, and it is vintage style, not vintage values. I definitely subscribe to that. And the vintage values I'm talking about are things like racism, things like sexism, LGBTQ issues, homophobia, things like that. That's what I mean by vintage values. So people making assumptions about me because of my style, about those things, what I would say is try to educate them and say, no, that's not really what I think at all. Not even close. And other people maybe sometimes come in and just watch maybe like one video, and then they say, you know, you're crazy or you're delusional or things like that. And I just have to just take it with a grain of salt because they don't know me. All they know is this one, you know, however long of one video, one little snapshot of me that they've seen, and it's definitely, they're not getting the full picture. They don't know that this is a style choice and this is like a lifestyle choice as far as my home decor and things like that go, but it's not a lifestyle choice in that I am actually living like I'm stuck in the 1950s. Hopefully that makes sense and that answers your question. Okay, Courtney Piper asks, what should someone do first if they're wanting to get started wearing vintage like you do? I would say step one is look for inspiration. So look at Pinterest is a good resource, and I do have a Pinterest. In fact, I will link it for you. I have a lot of vintage ads on there or vintage style, like photos, things like that you can get inspiration from. On Instagram, you can always look for other vintage style lovers on Instagram and get inspiration there and kind of get in your mind kind of the style that you're going for. And then you can start looking for pieces. And I say head out to the thrift store. Brian Edmonds did comment about going to the thrift store, and that is exactly right. Like once you have it in your mind, kind of some key pieces that you would like to have and acquire, then I would start thrifting and looking for them. You can do a lot with modern pieces from the thrift store to create a vintage look. So I would start there, start looking at that, and then if you have maybe a little bit bigger of a budget, then I would say you could look on Etsy and search for vintage clothing that way. And yeah, just good luck. Good luck with your journey. Jaslyn S. and a few other people asked me about my glasses. Those are thrifted frames and they are prescription lenses. So a little tip if you are looking for vintage glasses, they are available, you can find them. If you're buying them online, pay close attention to measurements because sometimes they'll be a little small to fit your face. I usually like to buy them where I can try them on. So at a thrift store or a vintage store, something like that. All I did was I bought the frames and then I took them to my eye doctor and had my lenses put in. And the tip that he gave is that they are able to switch out lenses quite easily in glasses that have a wire frame or a metal frame, but the plastic ones are quite hard to do. In fact, he doesn't like to even try because to get the lenses out and new ones back in, they have to heat them a little bit, and that gets really hard with old material such as plastic to have it not be brittle and break. So that's the tip if you're looking for vintage glasses. Look for some with a wire frame or like the metal around the entire lens and a little screw that you can see that they can take the lens out easily. That is my best tip for vintage glasses. Kathy Hester asks, you mentioned you manage a movie theater because of COVID-19. Do you still have that job? If you do, is it a theater that shows new movies or classic films or both? Do you dress vintage or modern for your job? So I am so very lucky and blessed that yes, I still do have my job. My movie theater was closed for a little bit of time last year, and then we opened and just did like curbside popcorn, and then we opened and did kind of like throwback classic films because there was not really much new content coming out at all. Starting last August, there's been like a little trickle of new movies coming out. So we're playing those, and we are open. We have a lot of safety measures in place. Lots of things that we have to do, but I'm glad that we are open, and I'm so grateful to have a job. I do dress vintage for my job. Another thing I'm grateful for that is not restricted. I just tend to wear dresses, things like that. Sometimes I don't wear as much true vintage to work just because I do end up hopping behind the concession stand and serving popcorn and drinks and things like that. And I would hate to get like oil or any like butter or anything on my true vintage clothes. So sometimes I tend to stick to more like reproduction things or like vintage materials that I know will wash well when I go to work, just because I end up doing all the things. There were a few of you that asked about my kitties. So I will tell you, I have 4 cats. If you've watched all of my videos, you've probably seen all of them at one point. But of course we have my baby, Mr. Johnny Cash. He is my little shadow. He is my sweetheart. He is my youngest cat. So he is 4 years old, and my husband got him for me for our anniversary. He was rescued from a woodpile on my cousin's property. She had let us know a cat had kittens in her woodpile, and so as soon as they were a little bit bigger, we went and fished out Mr. Johnny Cash. We also have a flame point. His name is Dr. Emmett Brown, and I know you've seen him. He was in my last video, actually. And Dr. Emmett Brown, we got from my husband's grandparents' ranch. He was a ranch cat, kitten, and my son brought him home. I have a Bengal, her name is Kenya, and she was given to me by a friend. Such a sweetheart. She needed a new home for her kitty, and she chose me, and I'm so grateful to her for that. And lastly is Alice. She is a tortie, and she was rescued just from an abandoned building here in town. It was a blizzard, snowstorm, and my husband saw a little tiny kitty running in the gutter, and he scooped her up and put her in his coat, and she immediately started purring. So yeah, that's Alice. So basically all of our kitties are just kind of rescues, I guess, adopted. A lot of people do ask how I display all of my vintage items and not get them broken by the kitties. The answer is sometimes they do get broken. Luckily, there's not too many things that have met that fate, but yeah, occasionally things do get knocked over, knocked off shelves, just with the cats running around and playing and things like that. So alas, I have lost a few vintage items that way, but for the most part, they are pretty good about leaving things alone and not purposefully breaking things. It's just when they're like chasing each other or running around that accidents happen. So I don't know, I go with it. I'm still gonna display my things and I guess just kind of hope for the best. I have used like double stick tape sometimes for things like vases and things like that. If I'm worried if they're in like a precarious location, then yeah, I have used like double stick tape before. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to stop there. I've already been filming for over an hour, and I just know there's just no way to get through all of these questions. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to do a part 2 or maybe a live stream like what was suggested, because I would love to be able to get to all of your questions and answer them all for you, but alas, no time left in this video. A while back I mentioned doing a giveaway when I hit 100K, and that is going to happen. This is not the announcement video for that, so stay tuned. That will be coming. I will be doing a fun giveaway for you guys to thank you for 100,000 subscribers, so stay tuned. Thank you again for leaving your questions and your kind words. So many of you just popped in to say congratulations. Thank you so much. Our little vintage neighborhood means the world to me. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here. And if you are new and you have not subscribed yet, please do so. We would love to have you stick around the vintage neighborhood for more of our vintage fun. And I hope that all of you are feeling safe and loved wherever you are in the world. And I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye. Johnny Cash, you're giving me a hard time here, bud.
Let's get scratching.